Before we begin, let me ask you something. Have you ever heard a sound that wasn't meant for you? A whisper in the static, a voice in the dark, a message that feels too personal to be random. Tonight, you are listening to Echoes of the Forgotten, and the story I'm about to tell you was never meant to be recorded. Because once it's heard, it never truly stops playing. This is the story of a radio broadcast that vanished in 1987. No tape, no record, no witnesses, except one. And now, you. In the winter of 1987, there was a small radio station on the edge of Blackwood, Maine. It was called WKMN 104.6, a forgotten place, a dying signal, a station no one listened to anymore. The host was a man named Daniel Harlow. He worked the night shift, every night, from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. No calls, no music requests, just Daniel, the microphone, and the static. Until one night, the static spoke back. At 2:17 a.m., Daniel heard a voice break through the signal. Not loud, not clear, but whispering. It said only one sentence: "You finally tuned in." Daniel laughed it off, but the voice returned the next night, and the next, and the next, always at 2:17 a.m., always whispering, always closer. After a week, Daniel realized something was wrong. The voice began to say things only he could know. His mother's nickname, his childhood address, the name of his first dog, and then things he hadn't told anyone. You still blame yourself for the accident. You never visit her grave. You hear her crying at night, don't you? Daniel tried to record it, but every tape came out blank. At 2:17 a.m., the station lights would flicker, the clocks would stop, and the temperature would drop, and the voice would speak directly to him, not through the radio, but inside the room. One night, the phone rang. That alone was impossible. No one had called the station in years. Daniel answered. A woman was crying. She said, "I can hear you, but you can't hear me, can you?" Then the line went dead. Another call came in, a man screaming, "It's behind you!" Daniel turned around. No one was there, but in the reflection of the studio glass, he saw a shape, tall, still, watching. At 2:17 a.m., the voice whispered, "They're listening now." On December 12, 1987, Daniel made a final decision. He opened the microphone and spoke directly to the voice. "What do you want from me?" The static went silent. Then the voice answered, clearly, loudly, for the first time. "We want to be heard." The studio doors locked, the lights died, the red on-air sign turned on by itself, and the broadcast began. Listeners across Maine later reported hearing voices that night, hundreds of voices, crying, begging, laughing, all speaking at once. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the signal cut out. WKMN 104.6 went silent forever. Daniel Harlow was never found. Only the microphone remained, still warm. 30 years later, a technician restoring old frequencies found something impossible. A signal, still broadcasting, still live on 104.6 FM. And when he tuned in, he heard a familiar voice, calm, tired, broken. If you can hear this, please turn it off. It hears you now. Then the static shifted, and another voice whispered, "Welcome back, Daniel." The technician shut the radio off. But that night, at 2:17 a.m., every radio in his house turned on at once. So, if you hear static tonight, if your radio turns on by itself, if a voice whispers your name, remember, you were warned. This has been Echoes of the Forgotten, and now that you've heard it, it's already listening.
In 1979, the Gray Wall Medical Center was shut down overnight. No warning, no evacuation notice, no explanation. The official report said structural damage, but former staff members told a different story. They spoke of screams in the walls, of patients who vanished from their beds, of a room that was never on the blueprints. Room 217. The door was always locked, no number, no window. And every night at 2:17 a.m., something inside it would begin to play. A tape recorder. A night nurse named Eleanor Finch was the only one brave enough to get close. She said the tape never stopped, not even when the power was cut. At first, it sounded like static, then breathing, then voices, children, adults, some crying, some laughing. But one voice always stood out. A man whispering, "She's still here, she's still here." Eleanor tried to open the door. It wouldn't move, and from the other side, someone knocked back. On the last night before the hospital closed, Eleanor did something forbidden. She recorded the sound from room 217. At 2:17 a.m., the tape changed, the voices stopped, and a new one began to speak, slowly, clearly. It said, "Eleanor, you promised you wouldn't leave." Eleanor dropped the recorder because that was her voice, not the voice she had now, the voice she had when she was 7 years old, the night she disappeared. Eleanor was never supposed to be there. In 1963, a little girl vanished from Gray Wall Hospital. Her name was Eleanor Finch. Her body was never found. Room 217 was built over the room where she died. And the tapes? They weren't recordings. They were echoes. Every person who listened too long left something behind. A memory, a voice, a piece of themselves. That's why the room kept playing. It was remembering. When the hospital shut down, workers sealed room 217 behind concrete. But last year, during renovations, they found a tape. No label, no date. When it was played, a familiar voice spoke. "If you hear this, it means the room is open again." Then another voice whispered very close to the microphone, "We're not done." The recording ended at exactly 2:17 a.m. In 1994, a sleep researcher named Dr. Michael Rowe noticed something strange. Every patient in his lab woke up at the same time, 3:33 a.m. No alarms, no noises, no patterns. They all sat up in bed, stared at nothing, and whispered the same sentence, "It's almost time." None of them remembered saying it, but the cameras did. And something else appeared in the footage, a shadow, standing beside the bed. The first person to vanish was a college student named Lena Moore. She woke up at 3:33 a.m. Her roommate heard her speaking softly. When she turned on the light, Lena was gone.
Her bed was still warm. The clock still read 3:33. It stayed that way for 9 minutes. Every electronic device in the apartment froze. And on Lena's pillow, there was a handprint, too large to be human. Over the next 10 years, the same thing happened again and again. Different cities, different people, same time, 3:33 a.m. Security footage showed people standing up, walking calmly, and disappearing into darkness that wasn't there before. And always, 9 minutes later, time returned to normal. Dr. Rowe began receiving emails from people who had woken up at 3:33. All of them wrote the same thing. Someone was calling me. In 2007, Dr. Rowe finally found proof. One camera didn't freeze. For 9 minutes, it recorded something impossible. A hallway that didn't exist. Walls that breathed. Doors that opened into memories. And people standing in line, waiting. At the end of the hallway was a clock. It had no numbers. Only one word, stay. At 3:33 a.m. on October 11th, 2011, Dr. Rowe woke up. The clock read 3:33. He heard his name, and for the first time, he answered. The camera recorded him standing, smiling, and stepping forward. Before he vanished, he whispered, "It's not death. It's where the forgotten go." The camera kept recording, and for 9 minutes, something looked back.
The house was built in 1911. White walls, wide porch, tall windows, perfect. And yet, no family ever stayed longer than a year. Some left in the middle of the night. Some sold it for almost nothing. Some simply disappeared. Neighbors said the same thing every time. The house listens. But no one ever explained what that meant, until Margaret Hill moved in. Margaret was a widow, quiet, tired, alone. The first week was peaceful, until she heard it, a whisper, late at night, coming from the walls. Not loud, not threatening, just a voice repeating her thoughts. When she thought, "I miss him," the wall whispered it back. When she thought, "I shouldn't be here," the floorboards answered. She stopped thinking, and that's when the house started speaking first. Margaret began to notice changes. Doors she didn't open were open. Chairs were moved. Pictures were facing the wall. And every night at 3:11 a.m., the house would sigh, a long, tired breath. One night she followed the sound. It led her to a door she had never seen before. Behind it was a room filled with furniture, not hers, beds, desks, cribs, and on the walls, names, hundreds of them, written again and again. Margaret found old records at the library. The land used to be a resting place for the unwanted, orphans, the sick, the forgotten. Their home burned down in 1909, and the house was built on top of it, not to hide them, but to keep them. The house wasn't haunted, it was hungry. It learned voices, it learned thoughts, it learned loneliness, and it only kept people who talked back. On her last night, Margaret packed her bags. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't speak. But as she opened the front door, the house whispered, "Stay." Not with sound, with memory. Every moment she had been alone, every night she cried, every time she wished someone would answer her. She dropped her bags, and for the first time in years, she answered, "Okay." The lights went out, the door closed, and the house sighed, satisfied. In 2003, a travel blogger named Evan Miller was driving through northern Nevada.
His GPS stopped working, his radio went silent, and a road appeared where there shouldn't have been one. No sign, no name, just a narrow road cutting through the desert. At the end of it was a town, Ashfall. It had a gas station, a diner, a school, and people walking slowly like they had nowhere to go. Evan parked his car, and the moment he stepped out, the road behind him was gone. The people of Ashfall were kind, too kind. They smiled too long, they listened too closely, they never asked questions. When Evan asked how to leave, they looked confused. Why would you want to? At night, the town went silent, no insects, no wind, no sound, and every house had the same thing in the window, a candle, always lit, always burning, never melting. The next morning, Evan explored the school. Empty classrooms, dusty desks, chalkboards filled with the same sentence, "Remember us." In the basement, he found a room full of names, thousands of them, carved into the walls, some fresh, some old, and at the bottom, his own name, carved deeply, like it had been there for years. At the diner, an old woman finally spoke. She told Evan the truth. Ashfall wasn't a town. It was a place for the forgotten. People who disappeared, people no one looked for, people erased from memory. As long as someone remembered Ashfall, it existed. As long as it existed, they stayed. And when no one remembered them anymore, the town took someone new. Evan recorded everything on a handheld camera. On the final tape, he was crying. Behind him, the town was fading, buildings collapsing into dust, people standing still, smiling. He said one sentence, "If you're watching this, please don't forget me." The tape was ended. The tape was found in a desert parking lot. No town nearby, no road, no Evan. In 2001, a man named Aaron Blake bought an old house in Ohio. During renovations, he found something hidden behind a wall. A VHS tape. No label, no date, just one word written in marker. "Play me last." Aaron laughed. That night, he played it. The tape began with a man sitting in a chair, staring directly at the camera. Behind him was a dark room, and a clock on the wall. It read 11:59 p.m. The man spoke only one sentence. "If you're watching this, I ran out of time." Then the screen cut to black. Aaron rewound the tape. The video was different. The man was gone. Now the camera was moving, walking through a house. Aaron's house. Every room was the same. Every detail was correct. But the camera moved too slowly, like something was afraid to be seen. At the end of the hallway, the footage stopped. The clock now read 12:03 a.m. Aaron turned off the TV and heard footsteps upstairs. Over the next week, Aaron kept watching. The tape changed every time. Sometimes it showed rooms he hadn't opened yet. Sometimes it showed him sleeping. Sometimes it showed nothing but darkness and breathing. Finally, the man returned. His face was clearer, older, tired. He looked at the camera and whispered, "You're almost where I was." Behind him, the clock read 11:59 p.m. again. Aaron realized the truth. The video wasn't recording the past. It was recording the next person. Aaron tried to destroy the tape. It reappeared. He burned it. It came back, untouched. He buried it. It was on the kitchen table the next morning. On the final night, Aaron recorded himself. He set the camera on a chair. He looked into the lens and said, "If this works, this ends with me." The screen glitched. The room went dark, and the clock hit 11:59 p.m. The tape was found years later in a flea market. No house attached, no records of Aaron Blake. When it was played, the video showed a man sitting in a chair, staring at the camera. Behind him, a dark room, and a clock. The clock was counting down, and the man smiled. "It's your turn now." Static grows louder, distorted voices faint in the background. Every copy of the tape ends differently. Some stop early, some repeat, some keep recording. So if you notice something strange tonight, a reflection, a sound, a feeling that you're being watched, don't worry. It just means the video is almost finished. This has been Echoes of the Forgotten. And now, check the time.